Hi, and welcome to the Quick and Dirty Romance Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Skye McDonald, author of the Antebelle series.
And I'm Sarah Smith, author of Faker, If You Never Come Back, Simmer Down, On Location, and The Close-Up.
And together we are Sarah Skye, author of the best-selling Sips and Strokes and newly released Vibes and Feels.
Each episode will dive deep into what it's like to be a contemporary romance author. We'll talk writing inspiration, give you the inside scoop about the publishing world, chat about how we write those infamous sex scenes, and more. And then we'll pull out and wrap it up in 30 minutes or less, but we promise to leave you satisfied.
And if you haven't already read our books, please be sure to check them out after you listen to the podcast and DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes that you might have. So this is an and more episode. Sarah, guess what? I did a marathon the other weekend. Okay. A marathon of Bridgerton Season 2.
Yes. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so confession, Skye. I hadn't actually got around to like watching this series at all because I know that season 1 was last year, I think, right? Or maybe it was 2020. I don't remember. Time doesn't exist in the pandemic world.
Correct.
But when I saw you raving about Bridgerton Season 2, and then our mutual friend, Sonia Palermo, who's a wonderful author who has a book called Hot Girl Summer. If you haven't read it, go get it now.
Yep.
You guys were raving about it. And then I'm like, well, I have to check this out because I had some time. I'm like, okay, cool. I have like a couple days I can binge. And I binged both seasons last week and I am ready to discuss. And I know we haven't talked about this, so you don't really even know my reaction. So this is cool. This is like a cool blank reaction that's happening right now.
Yeah, this is definitely a cold run on it. I don't know where you're going to go with it, and I'm very excited. Okay, so before we get started and spill all of the tea, spoiler alert, obviously. If you have not yet watched Bridgerton Season 1 and 2, I would suggest you stop this recording, go watch it all, and then come back to us and let us know what you're thinking. All right, so that's out of the way. Sarah, what did you think? Maybe just to begin, have you read the books? Because I don't really read historical romance. I'm very much contemporary rom, just like we write, just like I write. So honestly, I haven't read them and I'm probably not going to, but have you read them? And then let's dive in. What do you think? Tell me everything.
Okay. So I have not read the books. And because like you, I don't really read historical romance. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just haven't. I think because contemporary romance is my jam, and there's so many of that. But no, I haven't read it. I've just watched the series, and what I thought was I really liked it. Like, as somebody who doesn't, like, I'm not a historical romance buff. I don't know anything about the time period. I knew nothing about the series going into it, other than it was huge on Netflix and Romance Landia was essentially freaking out about it, which was really cute to see. I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked it. I thought it was very engaging, very sexy. I thought they really nailed all of the both seasons really nailed all of the romance tropes. I thought it was really fun. And I also excuse me, I don't want to say anything super controversial, but I will say that I think that I liked season 2 better because, and anyone who knows me, this is no surprise, I'm an enemies to lovers person, like diehard. Enemies to lovers, no matter what it is, that is my most favorite trope ever. And I think season 2 was a really good enemies to lovers romance, in my opinion.
Okay.
Are we still friends, Skye?
Still best friends, because I am season 2 all the way, and we're going to unpack that because I know that there is a wide variety of opinions on that. Some people are very hard team season 1, and some people are just absolutely in love. What are they calling them? Canthony?
Yes.
Like that, Kate and Anthony. So we'll get there. Yeah, it's been hugely popular, and I'm really, really a fan of how widely it has been just embraced, because it is a romance. I was talking to a guy about it, and I was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to get their happily ever after with, the sister involved. And the guy was like, well, maybe they don't. And I was like, no. This is a romance. They're going to get the HEA. Let me explain. He's like, well, maybe not. I'm like, no, these are romances. There will be an HEA. Don't at me.
Yeah, I would have slapped that guy. I'm like, how dare you even suggest they wouldn't figure out a way to HEA this?
No. Let me tell you why there will be a happily ever after, because again, this is a romance. But it's so much more like the dynamic of family and just like the way it comes together. I mean, it's like a fresh take on Jane Austen kind of vibe. I mean, us being such big Pride and Prejudice fans, like you definitely get those vibes, but it's more modern in a way. Like it just feels fresher. But yes, I am a big fan. I have seen people living and dying by it on social media, and I think it's very cute that this is so like embraced and popular, because if you think of other stories that were made into movies and then people were like, oh, this is really nothing like the book, like I think people have really enjoyed this one. I don't think it's been watered down. Of course, we did our hot take on the Hating Game, which we both really, really enjoyed. But having not read these books, I don't feel the need to read them based on the quality of this show. But then it's Shonda Rhimes, right? Like, so you're going to really get something here. I will say that I enjoy these stories way more than I like the Hating Game movie. I'm sorry.
No, be sorry, because honestly, okay, here's what I'm going to say. I love the Hating Game. Mm-hmm. I don't think that does not surprise anybody who knows me. I think the book is one of my favorites. I loved the movie adaptation. I agree with you though. I think that this Bridgerton series, especially season 2, I think the way that it was adapted, or I guess I shouldn't say adapted because I didn't read the books. I don't know what the source material is. But as somebody who just watched the series straight through with no context, I really, really, really liked it. I think they did a really good job of like demonstrating the enemies to lovers trope, as well as giving the characters some really compelling backstory that I think added to just like the weight of the relationship and their attraction and stuff. Like, I mean, not that the Hating Game didn't do that, but like the format's different, right? So like you have a 90-minute movie, and then for the Hating Game, and then for Bridgerton, something like Bridgerton, you have a series. So you have like, I think it's 8 episodes, or at least it's several episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, 8 episodes where you're weaving in backstory, you're adding like context, you're giving character building, you have like a lot more time to complete the character arc. And I think that's why I mean, season 1 was amazing. I thought it was great, but something about season 2, like there was just something about how these two enemies, Anthony and Kate, like she didn't like him more off the bat, and then like, he didn't like her, but like they were so similar because of like their sense of familial duty, what they've been through, losing a parent, doing, putting their needs aside in order to help their family and help like make sure that their family is taken care of instead of like taking care of what they want. Like, I feel like the writers, the creators of the show did such a good job with weaving that backstory and that character development in order to make these two enemies who hate each other for a lot of the series actually have a lot more in common than they actually initially realized. And I think that really, it gave substance to their attraction, because it was clear that they were attracted to each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, you could be attracted to somebody who you're not going to have a whole lot of like a connection with, Well,
and like then Edwina, she was attracted to Anthony, but there wasn't a real connection there.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to jump in on that, because that to me really was why season 2 won my heart in a way. Season 1, I adored it. Like I tore through it too. But season 2 had a lot more meat on it for me, if you will. But the reason that it did is because of those backstories. As an oldest sibling, as someone who took care of my sisters, not in any way like this, but I watched my sisters when they were small. I like babysat them while my mother worked, that feeling of like, I need to take care of people, like was when they were showing like Anthony's backstory, I was just like, oh my God, like it was so compelling. Those flashback scenes of him having to come into manhood in a very abrupt way. And like they just did a really nice job without belaboring the point. Right. In season 1, Anthony's kind of annoying. Like he seems to be blocking Daphne. It's like, that's her name, right? Daphne?
Yeah, I actually didn't like him in season 1. I thought he was
Right.
a douche.
He's not likable. He's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you being such a jerk? He's so huffy, right? He's very huffy. And the way that they didn't start there, kind of like we didn't start by making Marco nice in Vibes and Feels, book 2, aka our enemies to lovers. um, the way that we did not let Marco just be suddenly a nice guy, like they didn't start by making Anthony sympathetic, right? Like that actually took several episodes to get into the story, but as soon as it did, it worked. And the pacing of it to me worked very well. And then Kate, oh my gosh, just that like she's trying so hard to like tamp down her feels so everything could be okay for her sister, her half sister. Oh,
Yeah.
my heart. Like, and again, I'm the oldest of sisters, right? So like, and again, not pretending like any of those things ever happened to me, just saying that feeling of like wanting the best for your siblings, that feeling of being in charge, like that really hit me. And then also too, just the tragedy of like Anthony's, like, oh my gosh, it was all, they gave such depth to the characters that their huffiness and their pride, if you will, really was well explained. And I think that's a really key thing when you're dealing with enemies to lovers or very strong personalities, is like, what's their motivation? Why are they doing this? And once you understand that, it really helps. But yeah, I definitely, I'm enemies to lovers team as well. And I thought it was funny because I'm going to reference our books again, but like Sips and Strokes, our first book, is a fake dating trope, and then we moved into enemies to lovers. So I'm very amused by this fact. It feels like a good flow, I guess, that they agree. But no, I liked season 1. I liked the way it established, and I really like, I love the music. I mean, God, the soundtrack is great. All of,
Yes.
like, you're listening for it, you're like, what song is this? What song is this? I love it. The costumes, beautiful. The Queen, who
Oh my
is
God.
getting a spin-off show.
Oh,
Yes.
she is?
Yes, she
Oh,
is. I just saw that the other day. Yes, there is a spin-off, like origin story of the Queen. I was like, yes. But like, yeah, the costumes are everything. That just, I think is a beautifully done show. Just absolutely gorgeous.
yeah, I actually was gonna say, you mentioned the music. I thought that was really well done, and so obviously I love like Pride and Prejudice,
Mhm.
Persuasion, all of the period romances. I think are amazing, but I think they can feel a little bit like, I don't know if stuffy is the right word, but it can feel a little bit like dated to the point where like I don't think, or I think you miss out on some people who would be part of the audience because the way that it's packaged and the way that the story is laid out is just not like in a very slick way, not in a bad way because it's true to the story, but not in a very modernized, slick way. And I think Bridgerton did a really good job of modernizing this
Yeah,
very obvious like historical romance,
yeah,
essentially. So like, but they did it in like a way that doesn't take you out of the story. Like obviously there's not, like Ed Sheeran isn't coming in playing a guitar solo. You know what I mean? Like it
right.
wasn't that. It was just like they're having instrumentals of like Dancing on My Own and
Yeah,
Wrecking Ball. And like it's so good. Or like Ariana Grande. And I'm like, this is a really awesome way of like putting a modern sleekness to a historical romance that like was really engaging but worked really well. So even though that has nothing to do with the romance, I just thought like packaging wise, it made the show really alluring.
I agree. I think packaging wise is an excellent way to put it. I
Mhm.
also think that probably that's why they were able to get away with the sex scenes in season 1. Okay, so I'll tell you something. My mother loves Pride and Prejudice, loves, loves, loves Pride and Prejudice. And I was like, I think she should watch this. It's so good. And to me, I was like, I don't know, it's not that steamy. And friends of mine
No,
were like, yes, it is. And I was like, is it? I mean,
see, that's like a whole other. I feel like that leads us into like the tried and true discussion in romance world. Like, okay, what is steamy? Because what is steamy to like my auntie is not steamy to me, and what
right.
is steamy to me is like a Disney movie compared to like my friend who reads like erotic dark romance. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
it's not. It's all relative, but it's like, I mean, it is. It's not steamy. Like I know that season 1 was a lot more had a lot more like love scenes than season 2, but like it's like people are talking about this like it's some adult.
I know it really were like it was porny or something, and I was like, I didn't think that it was. I mean, I thought that the steam was appropriate. I didn't think it was not steamy, but I didn't think it was avert your eyes, mother. And my mother has this phrase. She loves to use the phrase gratuitous. Okay, so this is gratuitous, and I'm like, well, don't read my books, mom, because it's left, right, and center. But I figured, I guess I backed off of suggesting it to her because other people who would be more on her tempo of such a thing, they were like, yes, it is. And I was like, oh, I guess like you just said, like to me, it was just appropriate. Like it wasn't like, oh, they're doing it again. It was like, yeah, no. But I will say, did you notice how fast he came? Like
Yeah.
that was a huge thing for me. Like, I know the whole thing about him trying to get her, but it was like every sex scene he was done in like 10 seconds. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. You're talking about Simon from season 1,
Yes,
right?
I'm talking about Simon from season 1. Sexy AF Simon.
Oh
But like every sex scene was over. He like would get started and would be done. He was like a 2-second man. I was like, what is this? Is this supposed to be a thing?
Yeah, no, I did notice that. And part of me was like, well, that's probably for like runtime issues and they can't have it be like too long. But also like, yeah, but you know, he was a very generous lover too. He always made sure that like Daphne got her orgasm. Like he would go down on her and he would like do stuff to her too. And he was very like, because she was a virgin before she was with him. And he would do things to like be very attentive to her, which I really appreciated. But yeah, I'm just like, dude.
I know.
Wow,
they were both spicy, and yet I couldn't get past that. And I did think when I read about Bridgerton season 2, I read that there was going to be a lot more steamy glances than actual steam, and I was like, oh. But I have to say, the heat was just right. It was just right. Like, oh, the so close moments. And then the scene in the gazebo when she's like, what did I tell you about you and your rules? I was like, oh, yes.
No, I'm right there with you, which honestly kind of surprised me because I'm definitely a person who's like, ugh, they're going to cut down on the steam. Like, of course they are. And they're going to water it down or they're going to like talk about paint swatches or like something horrible. And like, this isn't supposed to be what this is like. But I think because they had so much like pining and tension and almost like, oh, they almost kissed her. Oh, they almost did this. It worked really well. And I know like, I know some people don't like that, but like, again, if you know myself, I am all about that. I love the almost like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. Like, I remember, not to like talk about myself, but I remember when I released my book Faker, my sister-in-law was reading, or she was listening to the audiobook. And there were like a million instances in that book of them like almost doing it. And she told me, she's like, I was listening to it in my car. And it was like when they almost did it. And then the chapter ended and they didn't do it. And I was like, are you kidding me? She was so mad that she was like, but it made me want to like listen to it more. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point of doing something like that is like you hook in the reader and like you're also, or the reader, the listener, the watcher, whoever is, whatever medium this is. And you're like making them feel more and more invested in the relationship. And I think it worked really well for the two of them, for Anthony and Kate, because their circumstances were not such that they could be like, yeah, you want to like hook up? Like, no, we can't. Like, I'm engaged to your sister. Like, we can't just do this. So yes, like it was definitely fewer sex scenes than season 1, but I think it worked really well. And it did not take away from how sexy or romantic it was, in my opinion, just like
I agree. I agree. I thought that the one like full sex scene was very hot, and the rest of it, like like you said, it was like that, are you kidding me? It's like, come on now. And I heard a lot of criticism about people saying they wanted more of scenes of Kate and Anthony. I heard people were like really mad that we didn't get to see their wedding. But then I heard the show creators saying like there had already been this one huge elaborate wedding. Anything we tried to do would either been redundant or paled in comparison to the Queen's supported wedding. And I didn't feel cheated of any of it. Like I just thought it was all like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I'm definitely somebody who I can like, if we've already done something, we don't need to see it again. And it didn't, I don't think we lost anything. I mean, we got to see them in their honeymoon newlywed phase where they're just like screwing on everything, which is
in front of the family. Yeah, it was great.
it was great. Yeah.
I did think I really I have enjoyed it. I'm excited for more. Okay, so before we wrap this up, is there anything about it that you don't like, whether that be a character, a situation, anything that you were like, I don't know?
You know, that's a really interesting question. No,
I
okay,
but
right. And I figured you did. So for me, I don't think, you know what, there was one thing, but it wasn't even that big of a deal. I didn't like that Simon didn't make an appearance. And even though he's not like a major character in season 2 at all, like Daphne comes back, they clearly are happily married with a kid. But I understand like that wasn't to do anything with the story. Like I think the actor's contract just wasn't for 2 seasons. I think it was just for 1. So obviously he wouldn't come back. It's just for me in my like HEA happy romance. I want to see like, I want to see the couple from first season living happily. And obviously they had a baby, they were married.
There was a whole thing about that. Something like it was kind of mysterious why he wouldn't even be back for a cameo. But like the first time you saw Daphne, it was like, okay. But then like she showed up like couple 3 times and it started to get like where like I knew that we weren't going to see him, but it felt noticeable.
Yeah, I agree. And I maybe it's in you know, maybe it's because this is a story, this is a series about a family and the siblings, and all of the siblings, you know, they're going through each of their love stories, or at least the older ones, because the ones are little kids, so they're not applicable. But like, it was like you said, it was noticeable that Simon wasn't there. I get why, because like in movie making Netflix world, if your contract isn't for multiple seasons, you don't come back for multiple seasons. It's just how it is. And everybody just has to deal with it. But yeah, like I just wanted to, it wasn't like he needed to do anything. I just wanted to like see him like holding their baby and hanging out with Daphne.
I feel that.
The one thing that I was like, if in a perfect world, I would change that. But honestly, everything else I really liked from both seasons. There was nothing that I was like, oh, this sucks. I hate it. What about you, Skye?
So I don't, no. Okay. All right. So first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to the Featherington family because they are really an interesting and really well done group of like frenemy kind of thing. And what's her name? The mother, Mrs. Portia. Thank you. The way she took care of her family at the end, damn, that was some shade in a way that I did not see coming. I was impressed. But the character that I cannot, like, I don't want to see her on screen is Eloise. I have a lot of issue with Eloise Bridgerton. And I read an article about paralleling her to Mary Bennett and how it's like both of them, like, they're pseudo intellectual. They're not actually progressive women. Like they're both kind of empty and spend most of their time judging other people without actually looking through it. And I don't know if her acting is just top notch or if it's just the general character, but that character I don't identify with, I don't sympathize with, I don't like to see. There is nothing about her mannerisms, her movements, her behavior, and her rudeness. Everything about her is like it's like I love to hate it. I'm like whenever she comes I don't like her story. I don't like the way she's friends with Penelope. I don't like the way she acts towards her sister Daphne. Like, and the article I read, which I'm more than happy to link for people, and please let me hear your hot take on Eloise because this is mine. But the article was talking about how again she spends all of her time deeming herself superior when in fact there's really nothing going on and she doesn't look beyond her own nose. And that like everything about her character, like I said, including like her bodily movements are cringe to me. So I felt really I love Penelope, I love Pen, but I do not like Eloise. She just gets, I don't know, it's like that's my
no. Okay, all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think that's a great hot take. I can totally see how how you don't like her, because she's very obnoxious and like she definitely doesn't, I think, realize her position of privilege. I mean, I know that this is way back in the day, women didn't have a lot of
but her scene with that print shop guy, when he says, he's like, yeah, you're gonna go back, like that was really quite spot on. And I just think her way of like, she was not a good friend to Penelope at all at any juncture. I don't know. And then I don't know. Yeah, I do not like.
Yeah, no, and I wonder too. So like, I wonder if eventually she's gonna get her own, you know, love stories. I don't know. I don't know how things at Netflix works. Obviously, I don't know how many seasons of this there's going to be. I wonder if they do end up doing Eloise, if they're going to redeem her in some way, if this is all set up to redeem her, because she is kind of obnoxious and spoiled and very entitled and self-centered. I don't think she's like a sociopath. I just think she's like a very immature woman of privilege, and she doesn't realize the situation she's in. So I wonder if her character arc, whatever that is, if it ever happens, if they're going to redeem her and make her have some self-awareness and realize, wow, I was really like entitled and like a jerk for a long time. Because she's pretty young in this, right? Like she's,
well, I mean, she just had her coming out season.
So I don't know what that
I'm thinking that's supposed to be like 16, 17, or 18, one of those years. So, and also I read this thing. The actor is actually like 32. Like, it's a total like Breakfast Club situation. Yeah.
I thought she was like 20 or something.
No,
so hilarious.
30. I was like, oh wow. So
can we get her skincare?
I know, bravo, miss.
Yeah.
But I was actually talking to somebody about the season once I was done, and, you know, I was like hungover from the show, and they were saying like, oh, I wonder who will be next. Who will be the next story? It'll probably be Eloise, because there was so much about her. And I was like, hold on. You missed the important part. And that was the scene where Benedict and Eloise are sitting in the swing, and he says something about her having relationship problems. And she said, what would you know about it? And he was like, you're right, nothing actually. And I was like, he's next. Because of that line, because I know my romance. Saying that one line, you're like, yeah, I really don't know anything about it. You about to learn, son. You about to
That's a good point. That could be the creator's way of like breadcrumbing or foreshadowing. That's true. But I feel like they do that with multiple characters, so it could be,
I don't know. As a romance writer, I caught that line. I was like, it's you.
I will say one thing about Eloise that I did like had nothing to do with her person. Well, we'll see. But do you remember in season 2 where she's at her coming out and like she makes a joke to the queen, and the queen, like, it's about like emeralds or something, and the queen's like, hey, I kind of like you, and everybody like, and then that mean girl, she's with Penelope, Eloise is with Penelope, and that mean girl comes up to her, she's like, oh, just kind of alluding to like, oh, you need to have better friends if you're gonna like be on this good of terms with the queen. And Eloise like, nope, I'd rather die. And then she like leaves with Penelope in her hand or in her arm. And I thought that was really funny. And
that's cute.
It was something that like I would say, I'd rather die.
I can see that. That is a you kind of line. I like that. You would say that. Yeah, well, you identified with that. I liked it when the queen was like, at the end, she's like, she was like, oh, didn't you know that wedding didn't happen because I didn't want it to? Aren't they a beautiful couple? And she was like, aren't they? Like, I love the queen. She is so amazing. Also, I love her too. Also, season 2 featured a corgi, and anybody who knows me, as soon as that corgi came on screen, I was like, ooh. So yeah, that was.
I thought of you when I saw Newton the corgi. I was like, oh my god!
Yes. Died. I was like, oh, I like you best. I like you best. All right, so Bridgerton wins over the hating game. Is that where we're?
Yeah, and not to say that there's anything bad or wrong with the hating game. I just think the format counts for a lot. This is much longer. You could tell like there was a more intricate, in-depth adaptation. I think both are still worth watching. Yeah.
Oh, love it. Like any good romance is fun to watch. I think my point on that is the show Bridgerton is so good that I don't feel the need to read the book. Whereas if I had seen The Hating Game, I would want to read the book to be like, oh, what's this all about? So,
yeah.
So on that note, talking about Bridgerton is always good for me. Was it good for you, Sarah?
Hell yeah, it was good for me.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like what you hear, or if you don't, just feel free to argue with us because all of these are our own opinions. But either way, we would love it if you leave us a review if you've been entertained on your iTunes or wherever you listen. And if you haven't already read our books, they are Sips and Strokes and Vibes and Feels by us, Sarah Skye. Not Suitable for Work, Off the Record, and Nemesis by me, Skye McDonald, and Faker, Simmer Down, If You Never Come Back, and On Location, and the newly released The Close-Up by Sarah Smith. You can find us on Twitter at Author Sarah Skye and on Instagram also at Author Sarah Skye. You can find me on both at Writer Skye McD.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Author Sarah S. We love to hear from you, so reach out and DM us with any questions or comments or requests for future episodes.
Thanks, guys, so much for listening. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.